Leadership is usually seen as something loud. Strong voice, big titles, clear authority. But not everyone leads that way. Some people lead with calm. They lead with presence. They lead with energy. INFJs are like that. They don't push their ideas loudly or demand respect with force. Instead, they lead by how they show up, how they think, how they carry themselves, and how they treat people. It's not about having the loudest voice in the room. It's about having the clearest energy. INFJs are natural leaders, even if they don't always see themselves that way. They're not looking for the spotlight. They're looking for meaning. They lead from a place of purpose, not position. When they speak, it's because something matters. When they act, it's thought through. People often follow them, not because they were told to, but because they feel safe doing so. This kind of leadership doesn't rely on control. It relies on energy, emotional, moral, and visionary energy. People around INFJs pick up on it, even if they don't realize it. They feel it in the way the INFJ listens, understands, and creates direction. This video explores why that works. We'll look at 6 reasons why INFJs are able to lead through their energy, not traditional authority. These are not personality quirks. They're strengths that have real impact in workplaces, communities, relationships, and creative spaces. If you're an INFJ who's ever felt overlooked because you're not loud enough, this video will show you why your quiet approach is actually a form of leadership and why it works better than you think. Let's take a closer look at what sets INFJ leadership apart and why it connects with people on a deeper level. Reason number 1. Visionary intuition guides the way. INFJs don't just look at what's in front of them, they see what's coming next. That's part of their intuitive nature. They notice patterns. They feel undercurrents. They think ahead, sometimes without trying. And this gives them a quiet kind of leadership that doesn't rely on power. It relies on vision. When people talk, INFJs listen not only to the words, but to what's behind the words. They catch things others miss, a shift in tone, a quiet worry, an unfinished thought. They use all of that to form a picture of what might happen next. This gives them the ability to lead from insight, not just information. In a group setting, they often see problems before they fully appear. They spot conflicts before they erupt. They sense when someone is feeling left out, or when an idea hasn't been fully thought through. And instead of calling attention to themselves, they gently redirect things. They guide, not command. This kind of vision makes people trust them. Even if the INFJ doesn't have a formal role, others start to follow their lead. They ask for advice. They check in. They wait to see what the INFJ thinks. Why? Because the INFJ sees farther than most. They're also future-oriented. They think in terms of long-term goals, not just quick wins. They're not interested in power for its own sake. They care about outcomes that feel right, not just look right. That sense of purpose helps people feel grounded and motivated around them. INFJs are often quiet until something important needs to be said. When they do speak up, it's clear they've thought it through. They don't talk just to fill space. Their words carry weight. Their vision shapes direction, and others notice that. Their leadership is often invisible at first, but over time it becomes clear they're the ones shaping the big picture. They ask the right questions. They notice the details others skip, and they build bridges between ideas, people, and goals. People trust INFJs because they don't lead from ego. They lead from intuition. They're not interested in proving themselves. They're interested in making things better for everyone, and that's why their visionary energy works. It brings clarity without pressure, direction without control, trust without fear. Reason number 2, empathetic connection builds trust. One of the INFJ's strongest traits is empathy. They feel what others feel, often without being told. They walk into a room and immediately pick up on the emotional tone. They can sense when someone's upset, anxious, or just not being honest with themselves. And they don't use the sensitivity to manipulate, they use it to connect. This deep emotional awareness makes people feel seen. It makes people feel safe. And in any group, whether it's at work, in a family, or on a team, that kind of safety creates trust. Trust leads to influence, and that's where INFJ leadership begins to show. They don't push people, they invite them. They don't bark orders. They ask real questions. How are you doing with this? What do you need to feel supported? Is something not sitting right with you? These kinds of questions show they care. And when people feel cared for, they're more likely to listen, follow, and grow. This doesn't mean INFJs avoid hard truths. They can give strong feedback, but even when they do, it comes from a place of support. They want people to grow, not shrink. They want clarity, not control. And because they're emotionally in tune, they know when to push and when to hold back. In conflict, INFJs often lead by calming the room. They listen more than they speak. They reflect feelings back in a way that helps people understand each other. They don't need to be the loudest. They just need to be the most grounded, and often they are. Their emotional steadiness is a kind of quiet leadership. People look to them when things feel unstable. They bring calm in chaos, clarity in confusion, and compassion in tension. That's not something you can teach through leadership training. It's energy. Because they truly care, they inspire loyalty. People want to show up for INFJs. They want to contribute. They want to stay aligned. That's not about following rules. It's about feeling respected. And all of this happens without the INFJ raising their voice or throwing their weight around. Their leadership grows naturally because people trust them, not because they have power, but because they have presence. INFJs show us that when people feel emotionally safe, they become more open, more creative, and more united. And that's what leadership is really for. Reason number 3, ethical integrity sets a moral energy. INFJs are often guided by a strong internal compass. They don't just follow rules or do what's popular, they lead from their values. And those values are clear, deep, and steady. This kind of ethical clarity becomes a silent influence. People may not notice it at first, but they feel it, and it creates respect. When an INFJ leads, it's not about personal gain. It's about doing what feels right. They ask questions like, is this fair? Does this align with what we believe? Will this harm someone down the road? These questions may seem small, but they carry weight. They steer decisions in a direction that people trust, even if they don't always understand it in the moment. This sense of right and wrong isn't based on emotion alone. It's tied to reflection and inner judgment. INFJs spend a lot of time thinking about their impact, their role, and what kind of leader they want to be. They don't want to manipulate or dominate. They want to guide in a way that feels honest. That honesty creates moral energy. It surrounds everything they do. In meetings, they speak up when something feels off. In planning, they think about long-term effects, not just short-term wins. And in relationships, they act in ways that match their words. This consistency builds quiet authority. People notice that INFJs don't bend their values just to fit in. They don't say yes to keep the peace if it compromises what they believe. They won't cut corners to get results, and even if that slows things down or creates friction, they hold the line. That firmness draws people in, especially those who are tired of leadership that shifts with every trend. This moral energy doesn't come from preaching. INFJs rarely tell people what to do, but their actions set a tone. They create a space where integrity matters, and that tone spreads. Others start to think twice about their choices. They begin asking deeper questions. They want to align with that same standard. That's where INFJs lead best, by creating a culture that honors values. They're not just trying to win, they're trying to elevate the space around them. And even if they don't say it out loud, their behavior teaches people how to lead with conscience. In groups, INFJs often take on the role of ethical anchor. They remind others what matters. They bring focus back to purpose when the pressure gets too high. They make sure decisions are not only smart but right. That kind of influence sticks with people long after the INFJ has spoken. The reason this works so well is because it's not forced. The INFJ doesn't lead by power, they lead by example. They don't talk about values, they live them. And in a world where many people are tired of empty talk, that kind of leadership feels rare and refreshing. So while INFJs might not lead the loudest, they lead with the most stability. Their energy creates trust because it's rooted in something real. And when people sense that, they want to follow, not out of obligation, but because they believe in where it's going. Reason number 4, servant leadership empowers others. INFJs don't want to be at the top of a pyramid. They want to build circles. In those circles, everyone matters. Everyone brings something. and no one has to fight for space. This is what makes their leadership style so powerful. They lead by lifting others up, not putting themselves above. This kind of leadership is often called servant leadership. It means putting the needs of others at the center. It means asking, how can I help you do your best work? What do you need to grow? Where can I support you? INFJs do this naturally. They focus on individual strengths. They see potential in people before those people see it in themselves. That belief becomes contagious. When someone feels seen by an INFJ, they start to believe in their own ability. They speak up more. They take risks. They contribute ideas. All of this helps the group grow, and it all starts with how the INFJ shows up. This style also builds loyalty. When people know they're not being used but supported, they stay longer. They give more. They want to see the INFJ succeed, not out of fear, but out of gratitude. This creates teams that run on trust, not control. The INFJ doesn't do this for praise. In fact, they often avoid the spotlight. They want to see others shine. They celebrate quiet wins, small progress, and personal breakthroughs. They notice when someone speaks up for the first time or overcomes self-doubt. That kind of attention builds strong bonds. In crisis, this leadership model holds strong. Instead of panicking, INFJs ask, "What do you need right now?" They slow things down. They listen. They create calm. Their focus isn't on maintaining power, it's on keeping people steady. And that makes others feel cared for in moments that might otherwise cause fear or confusion. This also creates a ripple effect. People who work with INFJs often begin leading the same way. They pay attention. They offer support. They build trust. That's how cultures shift, through example, or example, not policy. What makes this effective is the INFJ's genuine interest in people's development. They don't see team members as tools or roles. They see whole people, and they want those people to grow, not just for results, but for their own journey. Even in one-on-one relationships, this leadership shows up. INFJs want their friends and partners to thrive. They ask deep questions. They help others think clearly. They offer encouragement that feels real. And over time, that builds connection that lasts. INFJs understand something many leaders don't. When others succeed, the whole group rises. There's no need for ego, no need for dominance, just steady, thoughtful, empowering presence. That's what servant leadership is, and it's one of the INFJ's strongest ways of leading without ever needing to say, "I'm in charge." Reason number 5. Quiet confidence earns respect. NFJs don't walk into a room trying to impress people. They're not looking for applause. They're looking for connection, clarity, and purpose. That quiet mindset gives them something many leaders lack: inner confidence. This isn't loud confidence. It's not about being the biggest voice. It's about being grounded. When an INFJ speaks, it's clear they've thought through what they're saying. They don't guess. They don't bluff. They speak with care. And that creates trust. People feel safe following someone who isn't trying to prove something. INFJs don't need to talk over others. They don't need to rush. They don't need attention. Their energy says, "I know who I am, and I'm here to help." That calm presence creates respect. This quiet confidence also helps in conflict. When things get tense, the INFJ doesn't escalate. They breathe. They listen. They speak when needed. And often that calm energy shifts the room. People take a step back. They stop shouting. They listen more. And slowly, things begin to settle. That's real leadership. Not taking control through force, but through presence. The INFJ doesn't have to demand attention. They receive it by staying steady when others are shaken. In team settings, this is especially powerful. The INFJ becomes a kind of anchor. When the group is unsure, they bring direction. When the group is stressed, they bring calm. When the group is drifting, they bring focus. They do all of this without needing credit. They don't seek recognition. In fact, they often feel uncomfortable with praise, but their actions speak for themselves. Over time, people start saying, "Things feel clearer when you're around," or "I trust your judgment." That's respect, earned, not asked for. This style of leadership is rare but powerful. It doesn't rely on volume. It relies on truth. The INFJ leads from the inside out, and people follow, not because they're told to, but because they want to. Reason number 6. Strategic insight fosters collaboration. INFJs are often seen as deep thinkers, but what many people miss is how strategic they can be. They don't just feel things, they think through how systems work. They notice how people interact. They understand what helps a group flow and what blocks it. And this insight becomes a powerful leadership tool. They don't organize people by force, they align people through purpose. They can see how each person fits into the bigger picture. They know who works well together, who needs space, and who might need encouragement. This ability to sense team dynamics makes collaboration smoother. The INFJ doesn't micromanage. They step back and guide. They notice when someone needs direction, and they offer it without taking over. They create space for people to use their strengths. And because they trust others to contribute, people often rise to the occasion. This insight also helps them plan long-term. INFJs can sense how today's choices affect tomorrow's outcomes. They don't get stuck in short-term wins. They think about the impact 5 steps ahead. That kind of perspective helps teams stay focused on goals that matter, not just fast results. And in conversations, the INFJ knows how to connect people's ideas. They can take one person's thought, link it to another's, and build something new. This brings people together. It makes everyone feel part of the process. And that's how collaboration happens, not through control, but connection. Their strategy isn't loud. It's quiet and thoughtful. But it works. People feel guided without feeling bossed around. They feel supported, not pushed. And over time, that energy turns into results. That's why INFJ leadership thrives in creative projects, teams, and communities. They don't just bring people together. They make the space make sense. They lead with clarity, and everyone around them benefits. Leadership doesn't always look like a loud voice or a powerful title. Sometimes it looks like calm presence, steady values, clear insight, real empathy. INFJs lead this way, through energy, not authority. And it works. Each of the 6 reasons we've explored shows how their leadership style builds trust, brings people together, and creates results without force. Their intuition gives direction. Their empathy builds connection. Their values set a tone. Their service lifts others. Their quiet confidence earns respect. And their insight helps teams work in harmony. INFJs don't lead because they want control. They lead because they care. And that kind of care has power. It moves people, even when it's quiet. It influences even when it doesn't demand. And in today's world, where many people are tired of being pushed around, this softer, smarter kind of leadership stands out. If you're an INFJ, don't let the world tell you you're not a leader because you don't lead loudly. You lead in a different way, and that way is just as strong, sometimes stronger. Keep showing up with your calm. Keep building with your values. Keep trusting that your way works. And if you're someone who works with or knows an INFJ, take time to notice the energy they bring. You might not see it at first, but once you do, you'll understand how much they shape the world around them. Thanks for watching. Let us know in the comments, what part of INFJ leadership do you connect with most? And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this with someone who leads in their own quiet way.